This is the story of a shattered illusion. The story of JonBenét Ramsey, a name synonymous with beauty pageants, childhood glamour, and most tragically, an unsolved murder that has haunted the American psyche for nearly 3 decades. Born into privilege in Boulder, Colorado, JonBenét was a tiny star, all blonde curls and dazzling smiles, the perfect embodiment of the American dream of success and perfection. But that dream was violently extinguished on the morning after Christmas, December 26, 1996, inside the lavish Ramsey family home. The nightmare began not with a scream, but with a piece of paper. Patsy Ramsey, a former beauty queen herself, awoke to find her 6-year-old daughter missing. On the sweeping staircase, she discovered a bizarre, handwritten ransom note. This was no quick scribble. The note was 3 pages long, written meticulously with a black pen, demanding $118,000. The amount itself was peculiar, not a round figure, but later revealed to be nearly the exact amount of John Ramsey's recent bonus. The note, allegedly penned by a small foreign faction, warned the Ramseys against calling the police, threatening that any deviation would result in their daughter being severed. JonBenét was gone from her bed, but the actions that followed would forever taint the integrity of the crime scene. Despite the note's explicit warnings, the Ramseys immediately called the police and, crucially, began inviting friends, family, and associates into the house. This decision, whether born of panic or calculated intent, transformed a potential crime scene into a chaotic gathering. Crucial evidence may have been compromised or destroyed before forensic teams could even secure the perimeter. Hours passed. The police, seemingly operating under the assumption of an ongoing kidnapping, failed to conduct a thorough search. Then a fateful request was made. A detective asked the father, John Ramsey, to check the house once more, specifically the basement. At approximately 1 p.m., John found his daughter. Her small body was hidden beneath a white blanket in a wine cellar room. JonBenét had suffered a fatal skull fracture and had been strangled with a garrote, a homemade tourniquet fashioned from a length of nylon cord and the broken handle of a paintbrush. The scene instantly shifted from a kidnapping to a brutal murder. From that moment on, the investigation became a public spectacle defined by one central, agonizing question. Was the killer an external intruder who broke in on Christmas night, or was the crime committed by someone inside the Ramsey household? The bizarre nature of the ransom note, its length, its literary flair, and the use of paper and pen found inside the house seemed to point inward. Yet the physical evidence, including trace DNA discovered years later, complicated the narrative by suggesting an unknown male presence. The case instantly divided the nation into 2 camps. The media glare was intense, focusing relentlessly on the family's wealth, their participation in the contentious world of child pageants, and their perceived lack of cooperation with the Boulder Police Department. Following the discovery of JonBenét's body, the lens of suspicion immediately focused on the family, specifically Patsy and John Ramsey. In many child murder cases, statistics show that the perpetrator is someone known to the victim. The strange behavior, calling friends, securing a lawyer immediately, and their initial refusal to be fully interviewed by police only amplified the public's mistrust. The 3-page ransom note became the cornerstone of the investigation. Handwriting experts were called in, and several concluded that Patsy Ramsey's handwriting could not be excluded as the author. The similarities were striking, particularly in the formation of certain letters. Furthermore, the note contained highly unusual details. It mentioned John's bonus amount, The paper used came from a notepad inside the home, and the language was melodramatic and filled with movie quotes, leading many investigators to believe it was a staged effort to disguise a crime that had already occurred. The theory emerged. Patsy wrote the note in a panic to cover up what was initially an accidental or rushed act of violence. But the family investigation didn't stop at the parents. The spotlight also briefly fell on JonBenét's older brother, Burke Ramsey, who was 9 years old at the time. While police publicly cleared him early on, a later high-profile theory suggested that Burke might have accidentally caused JonBenét's death, perhaps by striking her with a heavy object, like a flashlight or a golf club, in a fit of sibling rage over a toy or a snack. According to this theory, the parents then allegedly panicked, staged the elaborate kidnapping, and created the ransom note to protect their son. This possibility was fueled by rumors and media speculation, though no definitive evidence ever substantiated that Burke was directly involved in the murder itself. Years later, Burke settled a defamation lawsuit against a major media outlet that had publicly accused him. Despite the massive suspicions surrounding the Ramseys, the physical evidence was always the strongest defense for the family. Sometime after the initial investigation, trace DNA was found under JonBenét's fingernails and on her underwear. This DNA belonged to an unknown male who was not a member of the Ramsey family. For the Ramseys, this was the definitive proof that an intruder, a killer from outside the home, was responsible. The theory posits that the killer broke into the large house, attacked JonBenét, then staged the scene, including the bizarre ransom note, before fleeing. This DNA evidence became the ultimate point of contention, and in 2008, the district attorney at the time formally apologized to the Ramseys and publicly cleared them based on this new interpretation of the DNA.
The confusion that plagued the first hours of December 26, 1996, set the tone for the entire investigation. The Boulder Police Department faced intense criticism for what many observers describe as monumental errors from the very start. First, they failed to isolate and secure the crime scene immediately. Allowing family friends to wander through the home and clean up was a critical lapse that may have destroyed microscopic evidence. Second, the police initially treated the case as an abduction, which led to a delay in conducting a proper search for the victim inside the house. The search was so haphazard that it was the father, John Ramsey, who discovered the body, potentially compromising the scene further before detectives had properly documented it. This series of blunders became a permanent black mark against the police force, fostering deep distrust between the investigators and the Ramsey family, and ultimately hindering the case's progress for years. The JonBenét Ramsey case was one of the first true examples of a national media circus dominating a criminal investigation. JonBenét's image, the perfectly coiffed miniature pageant queen, was splashed across every major newspaper and TV screen. The relentless attention turned the Ramsey home into a fortress under siege. Every detail of the family's life, from Patsy's pageant past to John's corporate success, was scrutinized. The public, fueled by tabloid headlines and televised speculation, formed immediate entrenched opinions. The media became an unofficial and highly judgmental jury. This trial by public opinion put immense pressure on investigators to solve the case, often leading them to leak unverified details or focus on the most sensational theories, rather than pursuing impartial forensic work. The intense public focus became both a catalyst for continuous coverage and a major obstacle to a clear, methodical investigation. A decade after the murder, in 2006, the world held its breath when an arrest was finally made. John Mark Carr, an American teacher living abroad in Thailand, was apprehended after exchanging emails with a University of Colorado professor, where he claimed to have been with JonBenét when she died. Carr's confession was sensational. He claimed he loved JonBenét and that her death was an accident. The media treated the arrest as the long-awaited climax to the cold case. However, the initial euphoria quickly evaporated. Carr's confession was riddled with factual errors about the crime scene that only the killer would know, suggesting he was basing his story on public information. Crucially, DNA samples taken from Carr did not match the male DNA found on JonBenét's underwear. Jean-Marc Carr was ultimately released, cementing the case's status as cold and exposing the danger of seeking quick closure through false confessions.
Nearly 3 decades after that cold morning in Colorado, the JonBenét Ramsey case officially remains unsolved. The investigation, though cleared for the family in 2008 based on the male DNA evidence, still churns in the background, a testament to the persistent ambiguity of the crime scene. Today, the core of the mystery remains rooted in the 2 competing theories. We have the intruder theory, supported by the unknown male DNA and the physical evidence of a broken basement window, and we have the family theory, supported by the highly suspicious, elaborate ransom note and the initial procedural errors which failed to definitively clear the Ramseys. No single piece of evidence conclusively solves the puzzle. Instead, each points in a dramatically different direction, creating a legal stalemate. Since the original case went cold, technological advancements, particularly in forensic DNA analysis, offer the strongest glimmer of hope. Modern forensic techniques can now analyze far smaller, more degraded DNA samples than was possible in the 1990s. The Boulder Police Department has, in recent years, stated that the investigation remains active and that they are utilizing genealogical databases and advanced testing to re-examine the DNA evidence on the victim's clothing. This ongoing work is a race against time, as potential witnesses and even the killer themselves age. Patsy Ramsey passed away from ovarian cancer in 2006 without ever seeing her daughter's killer identified, leaving her husband, John, and son, Burke, to carry the burden of the lingering suspicion and the grief. The tragedy of JonBenét Ramsey is more than just a murder mystery. It's a cultural touchstone. It exposed the darker side of the child beauty pageant circuit, raised uncomfortable questions about parenting in the face of wealth and media ambition, and provided a chilling lesson in how a botched initial investigation can doom a case forever. JonBenét's image, the beautiful child who was also a commodity, serves as a constant, painful reminder of a dream turned sour. JonBenét Ramsey would have been in her early 30s today. Instead, her life is frozen in the public consciousness as a 6-year-old girl in a rhinestone dress. While the media clamor has lessened, the core goal remains unchanged: identifying the person responsible for the brutal act that took her life. The case continues to inspire true crime podcasts, documentaries, and citizen investigators, all hoping to uncover the one crucial clue that can finally bring closure to this enduring American tragedy. Until that key piece of evidence is found, the question lingers in the silent halls of the Ramsey house: who killed the child queen?